At 10:38 a.m. local time, Friday, November 21st, the ground under central Bangladesh lurched violently. A magnitude 5.5 to 5.7 earthquake struck with no warning, its epicenter in the Gorashal Madabdi area of Narsingdi district, about 25 to 40 kilometers east of Dhaka. It wasn't the biggest quake the world has ever seen, but the way it hit, shallow, sudden, and dangerously close to one of the most densely populated cities on Earth, turned half a minute of shaking into a national emergency. Inside office buildings, furniture rolled across floors, ceilings swayed, glass rattled. People screamed as stairwells jolted under their feet. One office worker said, "Everything started shaking." People ran without knowing where to go. In schools and universities, teachers rushed students down staircases. In factories around Ghazipur, thousands of workers evacuated in panic, some jumping from loading platforms when they felt the concrete shift beneath them. Dhaka, a city of more than 20 million people and millions of aging buildings, had just been hit by one of its most intense quakes in decades. And the damage came quickly. 3 people were killed instantly when a balcony railing collapsed in the old Amanitola neighborhood. A child died after a wall gave way in Narayanganj. 2 more died in stampedes during factory evacuations. By evening, the official count reached at least 8 dead, over 300 injured, and dozens of buildings reporting structural cracks. What made this so dangerous wasn't just the shaking, it was the vulnerability. Earthquakes of this magnitude don't usually hit this close to Dhaka, and the city isn't built with strong quake-resistant standards. Older masonry buildings, crowded dormitories, cheaply reinforced concrete, and narrow streets made conditions ripe for chaos. There have only been about 14 earthquakes above magnitude 5.5 within 250 kilometers of Dhaka since 1950. Which means most residents have never experienced something like this in their lifetime. Within minutes, social media flooded with videos, ceiling fans spinning wildly, office cabinets toppling, people sprinting outside in panic. In Dhaka University, students fled their dorms so quickly that many left without shoes. Near Baridara, a fire broke out after a wall cracked and exposed wiring. In Ghazipur, a stampede injured dozens of garment workers as alarms blared across factory floors. The shaking lasted only 25 to 30 seconds, but the psychological impact was instant. Power grids flickered, communication lines jammed with calls. Nurses at local hospitals said patients arrived with fractures, cuts from falling glass, head injuries, and trauma from panicked falls downstairs. Emergency officials said the quake's shallow depth, around 10 kilometers, caused the energy to hit the surface with maximum force. The Indian plate is pushing under the Burmese plate, and the fault lines through Bangladesh may not rupture often, but when they do, they tend to do it explosively. This was a wake-up call, a seismic shot fired directly at the capital. By noon, rescue units spread through Dhaka, Ghazipur, Narayanganj and Narsingdi. Engineers began inspecting high-rise buildings, many of which showed cracks in concrete columns and damaged exterior walls. Several apartment towers were evacuated. Schools sent students home. People gathered in parks and open fields, unsure whether an aftershock was coming next. Across the border in Kolkata, India, more than 300 kilometers away, buildings swayed noticeably for several seconds. People in high-rises evacuated into the streets. That's how wide the shockwave spread. But the local impact was the real concern. Dhaka's infrastructure is strained even on a normal day. Add a quake, and the cracks show, literally and figuratively. Parts of the electricity grid shut down automatically, forcing inspections at power plants. Traffic snarled across the city as people rushed home or fled damaged buildings. Emergency hotlines were overwhelmed. Geologists say this quake struck along a shallow thrust fault beneath Bangladesh's central plain, the worst-case type for a crowded urban centre. Shallow quakes release energy directly upward, giving buildings no time to absorb or redistribute the force. And in a region with weak seismic codes, that's a recipe for disaster. The stories pouring in paint a chaotic picture. A university student said the floor rolled like waves. A factory supervisor watched workers bolt for the exit as shelves collapsed. A mother in Narayanganj cried as rescuers pulled her child from rubble. Engineers found several buildings with significant structural damage. Not total collapse, but the kind of hidden weakness that will worsen if another quake hits soon. Officials warned residents to stay away from cracked buildings until inspections finish. They also kept schools closed in several districts as aftershock risk remains. Experts say older damaged structures are now at heightened risk, even if smaller tremors hit. By late afternoon, hospitals were still receiving injured people from across 4 districts. Many injuries weren't from falling walls, but from panic. People rushing downstairs, slipping, or being trampled in stampedes. In a region more accustomed to cyclones and floods, earthquake preparedness isn't part of daily life, and that lack of readiness showed. For the government, the response was immediate but challenging. Control rooms opened, police and fire crews inspected buildings, hospitals activated emergency protocols. But the deeper issue is long-term. Dhaka sits in one of the most seismically vulnerable regions in Asia, and this moderate quake revealed how fragile the city truly is. Scientists have been warning for years that Bangladesh is overdue for a larger seismic event, something in the 7.0 to 8.0 range, caused by long-term plate pressure building under the region. If a 5.5 caused this level of panic and damage, a major quake would be catastrophic. For now, the aftershock watch continues. Engineers are inspecting schools, factories and dormitories to determine whether they're safe. Meanwhile, thousands are choosing to sleep outside, too afraid to stay in buildings that now creak with every gust of wind. This earthquake raised more questions than answers. How many buildings are at risk? How prepared is Dhaka for a true seismic disaster? How soon until the next one? What happened today wasn't the worst-case scenario, but it was a warning shot, a reminder that even a moderate quake can overwhelm a dense city built without strong seismic protections, and a reminder that natural disasters don't wait for readiness. Tonight, families across Dhaka are sleeping in fear. Rescue workers are still assessing damaged structures. Hospitals are treating the injured. And the entire country is wondering whether this was a one-off tremor or the start of something bigger. If you want full coverage on developing disasters, real-time global updates, and deep dive breakdowns like this one, make sure to subscribe, stay safe, and stay aware, because when the ground moves, every second matters.